let me. There we go. And we're live. Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to High Leverage Actions, the podcast where we share personal development strategies and we have a conversation about them to help you find your higher self. Hey.
Leverage actions.
And it's done it again. Well,
Hi,
there we go. That stopped. So yes, where we're going to help you find your higher self. My name is Kay Reeve. I'm an emotional awareness expert. And this is...
my name's Rory. I go by Rory Lemonade on the internet. I am a neurodiversity and creative flow coach. I help heart-centered, neurodiverse creatives step into their power, get out of procrastination and self-doubt and self-sabotaging behaviors into creating projects that they really want to do that will serve the world with inclusivity and sustainability, mental sustainability.
Brilliant. And that goes very well with the concept of resilience today. And I've had one of those weeks where I think quite a few of us in my family have needed a lot of resilience. So it's a perfect topic this week, even though I can't go too much into that at the moment. Definitely something that I've had to learn in the past to help me through burnout at work, which is why we followed on from last week. So if anybody hasn't seen last week's talk about burnout, this is the perfect follow-on. It's like the antidote to burnout is building resilience to prevent it in future. So anyway, Rory is going to kindly kick us off tonight with some insights on what he believes is resilience and how to create it. Okay.
Yes, thanks, Kay. So, yeah, it's a fascinating topic that I first heard the word a few years ago, properly. I kind of probably knew about it a little bit here and there, but I really got into the technical details of what it potentially is. And it really comes down to the idea of the first thing, what is resilience? Resilience is strong and kind of bendy, can take challenge, but also maintains its shape and maintains its level of integrity whilst being able to deal with shock and challenge and things like that at the same time. And so,
So I was going to say integrity is a good word because we've done that on one of the earlier versions as well. And yeah, that's a good one to throw in. Sorry, interrupted.
yeah, yeah. So if you take an idea of a bridge that's been well designed, it can wobble. The sort of the rope bridges, the really strong wire bridges, and in winds that they can handle that change at the same time as maintain their 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 function. And so when it comes back down to function, how we function is how we react and respond in each moment. And so if there's a potential for there's 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 our internal, I'd say that there's our internal resilience that's kind of a baseline resilience that we have on a general level going throughout day to day. And then there's a in the moment battery charge as well in the brain. So one day, that's why potentially one day when someone says, "Oh, I've woken up on the wrong side of the bed," for instance, and they haven't sort of recharged themselves mentally, emotionally, or physically in some way, shape, or form, and they're lower than their baseline, then all these little extra stresses or things that may come around that are just maybe just general could be handled when we are charged up here normally, is where we can have our resilience being challenged, and that can actually be the thing that chips away at our resilience over time if we don't mentally and physically recharge our batteries. So there's more to it than that, but I would just say I just thought I'd throw that out there to see what comes back to you, UK.
Yeah, no, there's quite a few things there. Like you say, integrity is about maintaining a kind of a status quo about who we are. And then for me, another thing that comes up around that is trigger words or triggers, not necessarily trigger words, but it could be trigger words, but triggers that set us off. And where we can be flexible around that and that flexibility around managing situations and resilience is being able to be stronger, like you were saying about the bridge, and have a bit more bendability around these triggers so we don't break, so we don't have outbursts and meltdowns and tears and tantrums. And it's about on the long term managing that burnout, but on the short term avoiding being triggered as well or having those breakdowns. So yeah, it's interesting actually thinking back. I think I first heard about resilience back in about 2015, or I think it was about 2015. And I actually went on a resilience training course for a week down in London. I think there's one occasion I actually didn't get lost. I'm well known for getting lost in London. But yes, I actually spent a week learning about this. And very much like we say, it's about when we talked about burnout last week, I then did a separate episode about burnout with parenting, and we talked about it in terms of battery charge. Or another way to think of it is in capacity. Like if you have that much capacity to manage something, you need to work inside that capacity, because if you overflow it, then and everything else is like falling out and falling apart. So it's about being able to manage your mental, physical, and emotional capacity independently, but holistically as well. And when you can learn to manage each of those, then your resilience is stronger because you've got that flexibility, that gap to play with. But when you've pushed yourself over capacity, that's when little things create big triggers. And yes, I've definitely seen a few of those raising a neurodivergent teenager who, even though was mentally way within his capacity, always felt emotionally outside of it. Then yes, there was a lot of physical outlet as well to manage that. And it was teaching him to bring a lot of that back into line until he could bring that resilience in. And actually, he's now one of the most resilient people I know. But at the time, when he wasn't managing all of those different capacities in the right levels, no hope. Everything was a trigger. So, but the same for me with burnout at work. It was learning to manage those different aspects with health and thought processes, but then it's also diet and stuff like that, exercise, rest, all very relevant again to building that resilience. And the more you learn, the more you practice, the more resilient you grow. And it is something we can grow. So it's not something we just have that's fixed. We can grow this, and everybody can do it. So yeah.
Yeah, I like what you say about reminding that it's not fixed and everyone can do it once if they it comes back down to the word perception comes to mind about what we're perceiving about things is and our belief about that. Because if we're believing that's happening, that can also be the thing that causes the trigger response stress. And actually, the stress is meant to be an emergency little wave of chemicals and situations so that we can do the thing to get back out of it. And so getting back out of that is important. If it's stepping away, if there is a high level stress thing, or and just calming back down and relaxing,
Mm.
and noticing whether it's like a short term thing or if this has been going on a long time, all that kind of stuff too. Um, and the one of the other points being around the what I heard you say as well is that building up that independence to be able to be resilient is important, and also interdependency to be able to outsource what is not necessarily needed to be thinking about to make things so we stay on our sweet spot of what we're good at doing within our personality and what we believe we're good at doing as well. So that's also, I think, will build our resilience to be feeling like we've got a few things in place that help manage the stress and to or overwhelm that comes with feeling triggered and less resilient in those moments. And again, the final piece that I'll say just in the moment is this physical, mental, and emotional techniques there are there. Um, yeah, there's different tools for different reasons, and they can all um, help with certain types of resilience. And so I'll mention those. shortly. But yeah, it's what you're saying about, yeah, bringing in the different things. We can do a physical thing, and that can potentially help our mental, and it will help our mental if we're building up. But also, there are also big getting even more understanding, more specifics as well can help too.
Yeah, yeah, and that's absolutely right. And sometimes when we're overworked in one of those capacities, when we talk about physical, mental, emotional, then if you're emotionally overwhelmed, then like you say, physical release through walking, going to the gym, whatever, whatever people don't punch people, because that's the wrong way to do it. But very often the physical trigger is the reaction to triggers is very often like getting in fights and crime and stuff like that. And this is about avoiding all of that. Um, so it's about looking at if they're not balanced, how can you increase another capacity, another area of life to bring that one back into control, or back into a place where you feel comfortable with it again. And so the same, if you're physically trying to train out and it's feeling overwhelming, then it's looking at the mental and emotional way of changing thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. And that's why they have sports coaches and things. So in all ways, this kind of, there's a flexibility about which one to work on. And there was something else you said, interdependence. I love that word. And when I heard about that word and the concept really stuck with me, it was one I did use a lot with my son. And we bring children and teenagers up these days to say, right, you need to grow up and you need to be independent. Let's stop that. Let's stop telling them to be independent because it's too stressful. And yes, they want some independence, but they also need to be interdependent and understand the concept of both. Because, like Rory says, we don't do everything alone. And I always think a great way to look at that as an adult is if you've got a flat tire on the car, everybody can handle it a little bit differently. So this is where we're looking at the different ways of coping it. If somebody is, say, for example, physically disabled and they can't get in and out of the car very well and they get a flat tire, they're going to need a lot more interdependence, getting somebody else to come and help them change the tire, versus the person who is already a mechanic and get out and change his own. And then somebody else in between, like me, I'm capable of changing my own tire. Or not my tire, sorry, you don't change the tire, you change the wheel and the garage then changes the tire. I don't want to look too stupid as a woman driver. I can drive a car and I can change a wheel. But then there came a time when I'd got a flat tire and my wheel had seized on and I couldn't get the wheel off. It had actually rusted onto the hub. So, of course, then I need help and I had to call the RAC out. And so there's different levels where sometimes we're capable of doing something independently, but when things don't always go to plan, we still need that interdependence and that support from other people. Now, it's easy to use that analogy with a car, but when we use that with being emotionally overwhelmed with something, whatever it is, and that's where we then perhaps ask friends and managers and colleagues and family for support, and sometimes external services as well. We actually go for like talking therapies or hire a coach or a mentor like myself or Rory. And that's where emotionally we can be interdependent and not have to do everything alone. And actually realizing resilience and strength is about having the power to say, I need help. That's important as well. So back to you, Rory. I feel like we're playing your ping pong here.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it. The only thing I really want to add to this, just as I bring a bit of neuroscience again to it, is the idea that the area of the brain that deals with the stress, and if it's starting off on the wrong side of the bed or something's triggering, then maybe there's something that, and what you said about the emotional thing, I always see emotions as being like this bit in between the body and the mind that actually can't be grabbed hold of, like but in some ways the mind can, even though we can't see the mind, we can grab hold of it. We can say, hang on, I'm going to do this instead of this. Whereas emotions is sort of linked to this back shelf, murky area that that will react regardless of. whether we say I don't want to react right now. That will happen because of our beliefs. Our beliefs attached to the emotional system, and the only way we can notice we're having an emotion is through our sensations and how we feel. And by that point, we've had the emotional reaction. So the only thing I'd say is to come back to what you were saying before, which is great to notice the emotions. If there's emotions coming up all the time or something's triggering, we can only access that through either mental techniques or, like you say, physical techniques. You've already mentioned about the walking and the hot bath or whatever it is that will just help to really deeply relax and calm the system. And breathing techniques is that link in between the mind and the body and the emotions in some ways to do breathing and relaxing. But that's not necessarily if we are already having a tricky time and we haven't learned that breathing is relaxing, because that can actually cause more stress trying to get something right as well. So one of the quickest ways is either doing something that you know relaxes you in the moments, and then trying out your long-term resilience tools, or the mental fitness techniques of pure sensation for very short amount of time can really, really help. So the mindfulness, really feeling into exactly how this feels for as long as you can, even if there's thoughts coming in or analysis, letting it go and coming back, letting it go, coming back, and just really feeling the sensations whatever we're feeling, or deliberately feel somewhere else to take our mind away from what we're feeling. And that can be done with various senses like visual, sound, listen to music or something, or the birds singing or whatever it is, and really focusing in on that can change the battery charge of charging that area of the brain that's thinking about all the difficulty or the trigger, to this area of the brain that more this area of the brain that lights up when we feel more calm and relaxed. And then we can start having better ideas coming about what to do going forward. So there's that I call it emergencies. When we're having an emergency, then it's important to take away, and there's various tools for that. And there's also then long-term resilience plans, and that's where maybe therapy if it's needed, or coaching if it's more a case of going somewhere you want to go, then yeah.
No, it's a good point, because like you say, there's in the moment resilience, like how you hold off against a certain trigger, a certain situation, whether you manage it long term, like when I was in a corporate office and there was constant demands coming at me and constant deadlines to pick off. So it's about being able to sustain that. And then if you imagine, like we talk a lot about people with neurodiversity, and for them, those triggers, I should say for us as well, those triggers can be very overwhelming compared to neurotypical people, in that they feel amplified. And so it's much easier to have emotional dysregulation when you're in when you're lacking the knowledge about how to manage those emotions and how to build that resilience. But that can all help with that emotional dysregulation as well for somebody with neurodiversity. Well, I say neurodiversity is everything. I will get this right one day. Neurodivergent traits, or it's ADHD, ASD, any of the diagnoses, whether you're actually diagnosed or not. If you find it difficult to manage emotional regulation, then looking at building resilience is a great way to help contain that in a way, not necessarily restrain it and lock it down and stop you feeling, but it helps to kind of soften it a little and make life more accessible. Because when you're not constantly overwhelmed and angry and frustrated at everything, life becomes easier and it flows better. But on the other hand, you imagine the type of resilience it takes people like paramedics and fire brigades and people in high-end jobs and surgeons, the amount of resilience they must have to have on a day-to-day basis to do really stressful jobs as though it's an everyday thing. So resilience is a huge scale. It's not just, this is a skill and you either have it or not. Even if you only build your resilience a little bit and it makes life a little bit easier, that's great. That's fantastic. And if it works for you, that's what matters. And then it's gradually growing that. And like I say, this is something that grows over time. And then there are times when, even when you've built resilience, life bombards us with all kinds of problems and losses and job changes and moving house and family. And there are times when that resilience can feel a little damaged again and you can feel a bit more triggered again. But once you know how to do this, it's easy to then build that back up again. So it's like building a house up, but somebody's knocking bricks off again as you're going. As long as you've learnt the building skills, you can put them back much easier. And again, help to avoid the major burnout, like the episode we were talking about last week. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all great. I think I would just round it up really around saying um that um there's like you said, there's like we're talking about the short term thing. So waking up and actually charging the batteries up by doing mindfulness and meditation in your morning will actually take your marker point, your resilience point up to here. And then as the day kind of goes and there's more decisions to be made, that knocks down and up and down, and sometimes something chaotic could happen, and it depending again how quickly how where our baseline is on that process. But charging it up first, if it's here and it dips, it could take us down, or if it's here and we're up here, then we've got more room to play with that emotional energy. And so that's the thing to do generally every day. And then the long term stuff is not, I would say it's knowledge and experience testing stuff out with that particular challenge, so that when it comes up, it feels familiar, if it's familiarizing
Yeah.
challenge, so that it's noticing that it was, oh, I didn't actually um psychologically break down after that. I tested it out in the way that I was safe to do so, like public speaking, for instance. Resilience for public speaking can only be learnt by practicing public speaking. It can't do that by being not resilient at the piano, or being really resilient wanting to be good at the piano, but it's not going to be the same thing for a different challenge. So it's where the challenges are, and it's actually working on those, and that can take some time, and picking those out and getting in and having conversations about that is what the coaching is all about. And so yeah, and even the in the moment stuff too. So yeah, it's like any questions around this, then feel free to stick them in the comments.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic, Rory. And this has been another really good talk. I'm probably going to end up being one of our shortest ones in history so far, but still really powerful. I think if we just round up by saying how we can help people. For example, for me, if anybody's looking to build their mindfulness skills, I've got a 10 steps to beginning mindfulness, which is an online course on my website. I'll pop the link to that below, but that's kreeve.co.uk and /courses. So that's 10 steps to beginning mindfulness. And I also do one-to-one mentoring privately. And there's other courses as well. And Rory, what can you do to help people grow their resilience? Because you do more holistic stuff than I do, which is great.
Yeah, so at this time I've got a free training that's on my it's on my I, you've I think you've done it, Kay. You did it before, did you?
Was it one of the like 2 hour workshop ones?
It's a three
Oh,
it's a 3 day one, but you can do it in about an hour. It's a little training on the
yeah,
framework for tapping through those things.
yeah,
Uh, the
great.
challenges: recognize, refresh, rehearse, result. So that's a little training there. Also, I'm taking interviews right now to for anyone that's heart-centered, creative, and potentially neurodiverse, or knowingly or not knowingly. And so, yeah, I'm taking interviews to see who would be interested in moving forwards with what I do for health and wealth and stealth. Health being any kind of health, long-term lifestyle, um, potential compulsive behavior stuff that wants to shift into productivity and creative flow. So, so that's what I'm focusing on, and I'll be doing an event in about 4 weeks that will culminate this all this work and show what it's all about too. So yeah, uh,
Brilliant.
Lemon Aid, AID. You can find me on the socials and find that training.
In the links. Yep. No, fantastic, Rory. Thank you so much. And it's another absolutely amazing conversation. Hopefully, it will inspire and help people to grow their resilience and just feel a little bit calmer. Like life was, instead of like drowning in everything that's going on, it's like swimming through more gracefully, and it just makes life much easier. So, it's something we both do a lot of, is use resilience strategies in so many things we do, and highly recommend them. So again, so if it's parenting teens or you want to learn mindfulness skills, again, there's courses on my website. And if you are a creative individual looking with projects and want to get into sort of your own creative business, then absolutely Rory, because he's even got strategies that have helped me a great deal this last year with growing my business. So free workshop there. There are free courses on mine. I've got a course coming up soon, and there will be more coming, but look out for all the details, and we will see you again for another topic next week. And we haven't discussed next week's, have we? So we're going to leave it a mystery one, I think.
Ah,
We usually find something to thread through, but we'll find something to follow on. But
yeah.
okay, so that's all from us today for High Leverage Actions, and we hope you can find your higher self and grow your resilience. Thank you for now.